Revolution Radio proudly presents live from Phoenix, Arizona, the Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here for topics you won't hear about on mainstream news, such as chemtrails, GMOs, nutrition, and conspiracy facts regarding your personal sovereignty. Humanity is 7 billion strong. We are the majority. And now, live from the Valley of the Sun, your host, Roxy Lopez.
Hey, and we're live. And I just have to say, yes, it's Roxy Lopez. Yes, it's still me. And it is November 12th. I was just listening to the show before me, Sean Morton. He's so informative, isn't he? I just had to sit and listen and throw some pot shots at him in the Skype window and everything. But it's kind of fun. Hey, I've got to catch you guys up on a couple of things. First of all, you need to go to www.spreaker.com. That's spelled like speaker with a R, Spreaker. Spreaker.com. This is how we're going to manage. Just hit like, and we're going for the old iHeart, here at Revolution Radio. So this is our affiliation and casting from iHeartRadio. And we need 500 followers. That should not be hard to do. And again, we'll throw this into the chat room a couple of times during the show. If you could just click it and basically like it, join it. And that's the path to iHeart for Revolution Radio. I know a lot of you listeners would be totally thrilled if we get the gig. And we're almost there. So if you could do that for me, Spreaker.com. And the link is there in the chat room. Thomas will put it in there. Good evening, everyone. It's a windy day here in Arizona. Don't know what's going on. Strange weather. It's so much so that people around me even noticed. Some calls I had to make locally here today actually mentioned it because it's bizarre. The weather got very warm again. It went up like 15 degrees, and we've got these heavy-duty winds, and we don't know what's causing them. We have no idea. Thomas, you just added 919.
I just hung up on him. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. And sorry if that was a caller. We can take callers on the second hour, but for the first hour, I have a wonderful guest. We're going to go down a path here this evening that I think is so needed and everything. But let me give you a couple of news stories very quickly here, and then we can move on. It took 20-something programmers a couple of nights to come up with an Obamacare website and alternative. Do not be confused by this. I'll give you the link to this story. I know that we've been following this for quite some time because it's such a debacle, and it goes to show you, oh my gosh, what is going on in America kind of thing, you know what I'm saying? Who knows? But this is really interesting. It took them, again, 20-something programmers, a couple of nights to come up, to build from scratch an Obamacare website alternative. But what's interesting about this, by the way, it's called thehealthsherpa.com. Thehealthsherpa.com. Don't know what it means. And you can go there and take a look at it. And the website that addressed the biggest problems from the glitch-ridden healthcare.gov, that nobody can seem to sign up for a plan. And it's quite interesting because you cannot use this website that these guys built in 2 nights. You can't use it to actually sign up for Obamacare. But what you can do, what they did, is they put this together so that you can shop plans. And actually, apparently, a few people have actually found their plans, signed up for their plans, which, by the way, when you sign up for a plan, that makes you in compliance with the health care laws in the country that began supposedly on October 1st, 2013. I find it very interesting. The 3 programmers based their site, which took them a couple of nights to create, off code buried by high-priced contractors on the original Obamacare website. What does that say to you right there? They simply found an easier and a cheaper way to make the experience doable for the average consumer. Quote, "That's a great thing about having such a small team," said one of the leaders of the tech teams. You sit around a table and you say, okay, how does this work? There's no coordination meetings. There's no planning sessions. It's like, well, let's read the document and let's implement this. The programmers even added a feature, get this, to help users calculate whether they're eligible for tax subsidies under the new health care law. The subsidy calculation is fairly complicated, but it wasn't too bad on the other side, if you can get to it, because as we all know, the government health care site is not really working. It's important to note that you can't actually enroll in Obamacare through the healthsherpa.com, and it doesn't perform every function that healthcare.gov was designed to perform but doesn't. I have to just laugh. Is this hilarious to anybody? Is this just a debacle? Okay, still, the site does offer contact information for health insurance providers, which means someone could sign up without ever having to use the healthcare.gov website. So basically, it's a workaround. You can go, you never even have to log into the healthcare.gov website. I'm going to look into this story a little bit more. I want to find out what their security codes on it. As you know, there were over 17 security breaches on the healthcare.gov website. Purposeful? Yeah, I think so. I don't think that was an oversight. And how long and how many millions of dollars did it take? Took these guys 2 nights to build a site that you can actually go to, look at all the health providers that are within compliance of the new healthcare laws, sign up, and you're done. For those of you who want to play the game. For me, I don't want to play the game, so we'll just have to see what happens there. Anyway, welcome to the show. We have a great guest this evening. A lot of you have written in already and are excited to hear what Suzanne Taylor has to say. You know, she's a producer, writer, and networker. She produces projects and events so that self-aware thinking individuals have opportunities to engage and to further the consciousness shift sweeping through humanity. This is important stuff. She's made 2 documentaries, Crop Circle's Quest for Truth, and, of course, What on Earth Inside the Crop Circle Mystery, which I have. Suzanne sent it to me last year, and I absolutely love it. The photography in it is amazing. If you want to pick it up, there are a couple of websites that you can go to. One of them is cropcirclemovie.com. You might want to check that out. I put all the links into the chat room, and I will continue to do that throughout the evening. I just really look forward to the topic that Suzanne, of course, chose for this evening. And, of course, the topic is New World View, Here We Come. You know, that's what I love about Suzanne. She's enthusiastic. Okay? In other words, we have so much change that needs to happen in the world. We're going to discuss what that change is. We're going to discuss it even on an individual level for each and every person so that you can see through your own eyes what we're dealing with here. At the same time, it's a lot of work. It seems like a lot of work. We're plowing through the fields with this work, correct? But Suzanne has such a spirited, uplifting way of explaining how to do the hard work. So I really look forward to the interview. Suzanne, welcome to the show, and thanks so much for being here.
Okay, let's fix it all, Roxy.
Okay.
Are we ready?
Yes, we are.
Come on, I got all this enthusiasm, so I don't know. I don't know why the world is so crazy.
You don't know
why
they're
not listening to us. I mean, obviously.
Right. Well,
Right.
Right. Let me offer something to this real quick before we get on our way. For you and the audience, I had a conversation, a very in-depth conversation with another show host last evening about this very thing. And it seems to be the topic for a lot of us, Suzanne, something that just pops right out like what's going on. And it's interesting because this seems to be a solution for some of us. There are those people who, and listeners, you've heard this before on my show as well, there are those people that you try to tell, just, explain something to, whether it be a UFO phenomenon or whatever, or you both see a streak through the sky together. One person says, I don't know what it was, like not even interested in what it is, when the other person says, man, that was a craft, that was so cool, oh my God. And you find that you can't go any further in that conversation. What is the hang up there? What is it that what you're experiencing, on the one hand, the other person is not even there? What is with the division of the two worlds? There seems to be a clear-cut division of those who completely get it and you can talk about just about anything, and others who you can't talk about anything with. What is that? Why is that occurring?
Well, you have, I think, another kind of demarcation that kind of fits right along with that one, which is the kind of denial of not just lack of interest and lack of attention and lack of awareness, but an actual denial of reality. And I'm on this today because I've been very plugged in to a piece that actually ran in the New Republic. Now, isn't that a legitimate publication that you would expect to have sort of objective reports in? I mean, isn't that one of our kind of, objective? It's not it's something that's controlled presumably by some fringe element, is there? Because you would think so from this piece that came out yesterday. I almost can't do anything else. I'm so mesmerized by the conversation. It's an incredible attack on Rupert Sheldrake, and it's an attack by Jerry Coyne, arch skeptic. And there are hundreds of comments now, among them several of mine, calling him a woo-meister. And so you read the comments, and people are saying, well, these things are just made up. There's no proof. Excuse me. You have all kinds of scientific experiments that are done on issues of psi, which is the kind of larger category that they are ridiculing. You have serious scientists. I mean, Russell Targ, for instance, is the person who was in charge of the lab at Stanford Research Institute for, 20-some-odd years that the CIA funded to do remote viewing. Now, first of all, the CIA is not funding this because nothing's happening, but Russell is a physicist, and he's a serious scientist, and he's not doing woo. When you do, one of the categories is remote viewing, and they got incredible results from some people who are very sensitive. Not everyone is, very talented in this category, just like all categories, but there are some people who can quiet their minds, let pictures emerge, and they really can see things that are elsewhere. And because of that, that's why the CIA funded this. Russell has a whole other category in his interest in psi, and his current book is The Reality of Psi, A Physicist Tells You It, or some such. I can't remember the exact subtitle. But, a lot of those kinds of things, they do, it's numbers. You have a subject, and you put them through trials. Well, if chance is 50-50, and the trial goes 75-25, that's your statistical evidence. That's science. It's good science. So that's a long kind of background to authenticate my criticism of this terrible piece, and then many of the people commenting. But of course, it brings out, the minute you put up something so specious, we love Rupert Sheldrake. We don't want him attacked. And, I'm thinking, God, we should never even get on there. We should just let it be. We, meaning people who are thinking rationally. Except you can't stand it. It's just too horrible. And so if you go on here, it's just an idiotic exchange at the level of the defenders of the piece, who just deny that there is any science. No, show me the science. Okay, well, here it is, and then people will post URLs. No, that's just a bunch of junk. What do you do with this? What do you do in a world where you've got the people who are not paying attention because their parameters are closed down and they are we might say unconscious, and then you have the others who are just denying reality as it is to prove specious points. What are we going to do with these people, Roxy?
Well, I can answer a little bit about that. What you're describing, as far as this gentleman's, all these comments that are coming through and prove it, and then people try to explain it and they shut them down. This is across the board. This is happening all over social media networks. This is happening on YouTube. This is happening on Facebook. it seems that, and we have identified that there are a certain percentage of these types that are paid shills. They are definitely paid to get in there, cause dissension, cause confusion, and really disrupt the chain of, like you said, good information, good science. So once I know this, or once we know this, if we're partaking in some kind of thread as such, and posting, wanting to stick up for the poster of the evidence, etc., what we do, and I've learned this in the last couple of years, we just delete or ignore. Like some forums, you can't just go in there as a subscriber and delete other comments. But if it's your own Facebook, you have control. You can just delete those individuals. And in the beginning, when Facebook first came out, these types, Suzanne, would argue just about anything. You could say the sky is blue today, and they'd say, prove it. And
yes,
you'd say, well, it's
notice
blue,
there is
right?
A certain pattern. Yeah, there is a certain pattern online where it's almost like human nature. Somebody says yes, somebody has to say no,
Yeah,
So,
there's that type. And then there's the other, and there's just the troublemaker. But then there's a very specific type, and I called them paid shills, because they are definitely in there to really rock the boat, bring strong opposing evidence in some cases. And again, all that does is confuse, and, I just see it goes nowhere unless who's ever in charge of that forum can really just get rid of those types. So
wait a minute. Some of those types are working for those people who have those forums. We discovered that on the TED controversy, that there was.
You're right.
There were
You're
trolls who were on that TED thing when all the flames were going. I don't know whether your audience is aware of all the controversy on TED, but I was at the heart of that. Oh gosh.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
We actually found a little bit of. I don't like to really talk conspiracy as if somehow that covers the need to really talk about things. You just label things conspiracy, and I really don't do that. But I'll tell you that there was evidence that we uncovered about this particularly problematic person who was particularly problematic in my situation with TED, and some clever people saw some posting that he had done that he could not have done if he hadn't had administrative rights, and yet it looked like he was from the outside, just making these nasty comments, really. So I think that's a whole other track. I think that is a track that exists online of trolls. I think, isn't that a sort of generic word for people going around, whoever is funding them or whatever they're doing and making trouble, I think. But whatever it is, there they are. They are there too. They are there. But it occurs to me to say something else about this whole thing that we're talking about. There's the world is a funny place. Maybe things look very dark, but out of the dark comes light. The funny Zen story, the horse runs away, and the horse ran away, but he ran and he chased them and he found a whole herd of horses. Oh, great. He got on the horse and he fell off and he broke his leg. Oh, terrible. You know that story, up and down, Zen story. Typical of whatever it is. I probably don't have it right, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, so I think that's a phase of reality as well. Here we are talking about reality. And I think, for instance, in this whole TED situation, and I do hope your readers know that Sheldrake and Graham Hancock were sort of banned by TED and created huge controversy. Their talks were withdrawn from the rightful place they should have been, as if they weren't good, and that created this. My understanding is it's the most responded to situation in the science domain, because it was essentially a war on this subtopic of science that TED gets involved in, ever online, the most participated in conversation. So on the surface, what they did to Sheldrake and Hancock, how terrible. Their talks were taken down, and so there's a lot of content in that. the talks were taken down, and they were taken down with such a specious explanation for both of them that both of them made written explicit responses to the charges, and they were so accurate in their defense that Ted actually had to acknowledge that they had spoken too quickly. They just hadn't really had enough time to consider these slams that they were issuing. But at the end of that line, and then all this participation by, more people than ever had participated in a science controversy online. But at the end of it all, I think Sheldrake's talk, because it took a little while after the talks were posted for Ted to rip them down in response to some skeptics having their opinions considered seriously by Ted. But I don't have the numbers right, but let's say Hancock's talk had been seen by 30,000 people by the time that it got removed from the place it was supposed to be, and then it had been seen by 300,000. The controversy drew eyeballs. And so because Hancock and Sheldrake are such really stellar figures at the cutting edge of trying to open our eyes to a bigger reality, they got a lot of attention that they wouldn't have gotten, and people seeing what the raw material was, what the actuality was that was being dealt with, and they liked it as well. They should have. I mean, Hancock's talk was fabulous. It was really a wonderful talk. So in the end, that's the horse. Oh my God, the horse ran away. Well, oh my God, those talks got taken down. Oh, but look, so many more people now know that work. It really turned out very well for them. So maybe we could, both of us, in our anxiety and our frustration and our annoyance at these perpetrations that go on, maybe we could relax a little and say, okay. In the bigger picture, this isn't the end of the line, and maybe controversy just draws people to examine what the aspects of the controversy are, and then if you got the good side, hey, you get a lot more attention. So can we relax in that place? Even though it's what I say, I get so irritated reading these slammy things from people who are irresponsible.
Right,
but I'm willing.
I get your point. And remember, Hollywood. What's the saying in Hollywood? No news. Is
any
bad
publicity
news.
is good publicity.
Any
that's
publicity, whether
right.
it's good or bad. So you have a point there. That's a really good point. Right. And if you can stomach, what you might be up against, it also brings out, I would say, for instance, with Hancock, and by the way, chat room, I just gave you a link so that you can see what we're talking about here with regards to Ted and Hancock and the rest. But, the point you're making is very clear. I also find that when you're challenged, somebody like, let's say, Graham Hancock, when he was challenged, he probably went to another level of brilliance because he has to answer to all this stuff that appears to the average eye as just a bunch of crap. But in the end, if he gives precise answers to everything and continues to point to the evidence, if you will, at the end of the day, I think you just made a great point. At the end of the day, the information got out to a lot of people, and it was the truth. And even though it just didn't feel like fun because you fell off the horse and broke your leg.
Well, that's true. I think that's absolutely true. I loved the intelligent responses they made, and indeed, they did have to stretch to be ever more clear and pointed and what have you. That's absolutely true. It was very, very, at that level, satisfying, although even though you went back, every time you went back into the ongoing back and forth, that still people, continued to come up with these frustrating attacks and defenses and whatever. It still is annoying. That's part of human nature too, I guess, to, just not like it when people are not being responsible and kind,
I don't like it at all. And I'm sure you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, who would, I mean, I guess there's this through a few rebel rousers out there that don't mind a good, stampede. I'm sure of it. But for the most part, yeah, it does. I completely agree with you. It just doesn't seem, it's kind of like the story that I opened up with about, building the new website, for Obamacare. 20 guys said, like they said, there were no middlemen, there were nobody to answer. They sat at the table, they said, let's do this, let's do this, let's do, and just got the job done collectively, brilliantly.
Right.
Same kind of thing. It's the same.
Well, we're just bumping along. We're not going in a straight line. We kind of tack this way, then compensate, tack more the other way. I think maybe that's the way life moves along.
Well, it kind of is. The proverbial SIHT happens. Welcome back. Again, I really want to indulge the audience. There's so many of you, and please go to that Spreaker. SPREAKER.com. It's hard to say, Spreaker. It's such a weird word. But anyway, please go there and, click like, go, become a member, whatever. It's free. Everything's free. This is only going to enable us to get to iHeart, okay? I know all of you want us to go iHeart. I even like the name iHeart. It's kind of cool. But we're back with Suzanne Taylor, continuing the conversation. So you were going to mention something you said, Suzanne, right before the break. Hegel?
Yes, I'm just realizing the name of your show is The Truth Denied. I wasn't really thinking about that when we started this and didn't quite know how what we were going to say. But we're talking about it's perfect for your show. This could be your signature broadcast, The Truth Denied, or maybe everybody talks about that. Oh, I guess they do. Anyway, back to Hegel. All right. So there's certain patterns that live in your head. You just know them, and you notice that life conforms to them. So here we are at Hegel. And the Hegelian dialectic, which is the way the universe works, is you have your thesis, which is your worldview, your paradigm, the way it is, what everybody thinks it is. It always is succeeded by the antithesis, people disagreeing, maybe going to war, fighting against the thesis, things that don't fit inside the thesis, things that are proved that are outside the realm of the thesis, but the thesis wants to hang on because that's the structure of the known reality and it doesn't bend easily. But eventually the antithesis gets so strong, too many contradictions, the thesis cannot hold. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So the antithesis blends with the thesis. The contradictions get folded in so that you have a whole new perspective that incorporates the things that didn't fit as time went along. And then guess what? I mean, people who know this, but the synthesis becomes the new thesis. And then we're at it again, So that's always such a useful way, it seems to me, to understand the larger forces in play. And it's just the way of energy, the way, it just happens that way. That's, look through history, look at how change happens. So we do have a pattern like that. And I always liked also, there's a comparable in chemistry, Prigogine. Who's Prigogine? Is it chemistry? Where you have I'm limited in my knowledge, but you have like liquid. It's composed of something, and you keep introducing elements that are foreign to that, and the pattern holds and holds and holds until it switches. It's too much. It can't hold anymore. So there's something comparable in the chemical universe. I could get in real trouble since I'm not really knowing, I just know that we're sort of bare bones of what I'm talking about. But I know that is kind of the pattern of change, Things hang in the pattern that they're in until they're just too much that opposes them, that just doesn't fit in. As life goes on and we discover new things, we get smarter, our perspective gets bigger. And so, at some level, these are very, you might say, natural processes. That doesn't make it any easier when you're in the middle of one of the kinds of revolutions. Oh, no, you're in this big process. It's okay, don't worry, you'll have a new synthesis. But in the meantime, things are shooting and it's difficult. So,
Correct, correct. And it takes a lot of energy. And I think I like what you were describing, like mutation and metamorphosizing and all the rest. Everything, once you start, even they say that even an object will change when someone views it. So, I mean, this subject can go really, really deep.
Oh,
let me
yes,
ask,
really.
Right,
that
right,
we're all
yeah,
interrelated.
Yeah. It's
right,
so,
the butterfly.
It's so deep. Yeah, butterfly effect.
The butterfly flaps its wings in Japan, and we get a breeze.
Exactly.
What
it's amazing. But go ahead.
Well, these are sort of background to what I thought we would talk about, which is this historical progression of how our worldviews have changed. And the reason that you and I would be talking about that at all, since my entry into your show, which I've now done a few times, but rightfully so, given the kind of subject matter you deal with, is crop circles and my deep involvement in them. And the reason that I was so drawn to become so enmeshed and put so much energy into what I have done with this phenomenon is because of the influence that it could have on our worldview. Because we are so in need of opening our eyes to a bigger picture. And the crop circles, sort of starting at the end where we are now, they could create the next big shift of awareness where it changes our juxtaposition to the universe. Right now, we're the only intelligence in the universe that's improved, that we know is so. We got lots of science fiction and lots of belief and lots of logic to think that the universe is teeming with intelligence, but so far we haven't pinned it down. We haven't found it. We don't know that that's true. And so for the time being, we're the big cheese. We're it. But were it actually proved that it's not just us, that would be the next big revolution in worldview where we could expect that it would be, some people say, oh, who cares? We've got problems on Earth here. Who cares what's happening with UFOs or crop circles? It doesn't matter. We got our own stuff to handle. Except that the stuff we handle is in a worldview. And our worldview right now is based on money. It's based on economy. It's not based on spirit or humanitarianism or compassion. And because we are guided by essentially our greed, not so much a bad thing in that, it's the progression that we've been in and the progressions we were talking about before. The progression goes on until it can't keep going anymore. Well, the progression we're in got us, the Industrial Revolution. It got us all the goods. It got, there was a time when it really was it was important to be focused that way to get the good things we have. But then, as I guess, with everything, you get beyond where the thing works, whatever it is. And with us, we've gotten beyond where ultimate greed really can run the world. It's too dangerous. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. That's a perfect breeding ground for the antithesis of a revolution, actually. That historically, that doesn't work. You can't hold to the old pattern when the split gets too big and when, you have a world of have-nots and, we're losing our middle class. No secret that is what's happening. And so, given that we are where we are in need of a rethink at a fundamental level, the crop circle seemed to me to be an arena that could catch the attention of everyone on Earth, whatever we do that educates us and makes us aware and gives us growth experiences, that's one at a time. So, but I was always interested in that. That preceded my crop circles. I was always interested in all the different things that could improve our understanding. Our fundamental understanding, our consciousness understanding. And then when I discovered the crop circles, I thought, oh, wait a minute, this is wholesale. This won't change your disowned selves or your pattern of abuse as a child and all the things you need to do psychologically to help yourself, but it will change the collective idea of who we are in the universe. And so actually, that's where I thought we might go over a little history lesson of where we have come from in the great paradigm shifts, the great worldview shifts that we can point to, that kind of is the progression that we're in, where we've ended up now. So, yes, we ready for this?
Yes, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay.
Sounds great. Sounds awesome.
Okay, so we're going to talk about history, and the first thing we're going to talk about is not Darwin, excuse me, he's the second thing we're going to talk about, is Copernicus and Galileo, and those days in the 1500s. And that was the cause of a massive shift of worldview, maybe the biggest shift we've ever had, where we went from Earth at the center of the universe, fixed, stable. Everything revolved around Earth. We were it, and our cosmology had an explanation in religious terms, which is kind of how our worldview is organized, which is heaven was above, hell was in the middle of the earth, and humanity was in between. And the whole Christian cosmology really is built around that idea. And when that idea was no longer supportable, and thank you, Copernicus and Galileo, where we became less important at the center of the universe, and it changed the whole Christian story. But if you can think about the kind of the bigger story without any identification of religions, that all of a sudden going from master of everything, center of universe, everything revolving around us, you can just see the radical difference when we became less significant. And there were other planets. We weren't the only planet. And the sun was the big cheese, not the Earth. And everybody's thinking had to change about what being human was. And most particularly, you get the picture most graphically in the Christian picture, but that was a major picture for us. And I think the Muslim picture was also in that sort of configuration way back when. So this was really the major shift that started the whole, changing our juxtaposition to the universe, the big picture. And I like the idea of worldview, by the way. The word paradigm is the more familiar the word we've been using longer, I think. I think worldview has come in more recently. But I wanted to read you something. One of my favorite geniuses was John Mack, the Harvard professor who got into difficulty with Harvard when he became interested in people who said they'd had abduction experiences. And he was initially studying them to see what the pathology was. And when he discovered there wasn't any pathology, he got very interested. And he was a very amazing human being, a very charismatic, very powerful, very smart, and very lovely human being. And he had a many years-long war with Harvard, which tried to dismiss him for this woo that he was into. And ultimately didn't. Ultimately, he won his case. He had tenure there, whatever. And he went on, his book, Extraterrestrials, is that the name of the book? Abduction. No, the name of the book was Abduction. It was number one on the New York Times bestseller list. And then Passport to the Cosmos, which I like even better. Those were kind of the individual people's stories. Passport to the Cosmos was him trying to make more philosophical sense out of some of the symbology and what was really going on above and beyond this person said this and that and whatever, which was fascinating. But anyway, so I got this word worldview from him. He's in my movie, One on Earth, and he was a wonderful, wonderful ally who in England probably looked the wrong way when he was crossing the street and got hit by a drunk driver. They drive on the wrong side of the street, and if you're not paying attention, you're not expecting cars to come. But at any rate, the guy was drunk. And it was a great loss. It was 5 or 6 years ago. But here's John Mack. This statement he made about worldview, which I really like a lot. It's a short paragraph. I want to talk about the matter of worldview and how it works. It has always been referred to as a paradigm, and that has more of a scientific flavor. But I prefer to call it worldview because it refers to something bigger. A worldview is the way we organize reality. It's the way we believe things work. In a way, it's like an instrument of navigation. Our worldview is what holds the human psyche together. When I came to realize with that Harvard committee was that I was threatening the scientific medical worldview by which they were living. What has been the dominant worldview in our society could be called Newtonian Cartesian or anthropocentric humanism. It's a worldview that puts human being at the top of the cosmic hierarchy of intelligence. The simplest term for this is scientific materialism. In this worldview, matter and energy form the primary reality, and there is no larger intelligence in the cosmos. The principal method of study is objective reality, which separates the investigator from the matter that is being investigated. And, you could go on from there. But that's where we are. Our worldview now is Newtonian Cartesian. It's a mechanistic worldview. It's as if we can explain everything by physics and forces that in fact, consciousness is left out. And, this is a huge cusp that we're on now with the thesis, the antithesis. We need a new synthesis where we incorporate the non-local reality, the actuality of connections, quantum in our quantum world that we've now actually scientifically had evidence of, that we do live in a world where there's non-local reality, where psychic things can be real things, where some people can see beyond this objective scientific materialism, which is economic actually. And we've got to get a new worldview that takes that into cognizance, because the worldview is still operating through this lens where everything's objective, and that's the place where, money is the god. So, this is a huge, challenging time that we're in, of hopefully really being ready to, make that shift over. Anyway, all my energies are, how can we do this? How can we get that shift to occur where we come into this broader understanding of the forces that govern us and that, we're subject to, and that are so much more dimensional than this simplistic idea that objective reality is all there is that's real, So
I've got a quick question about that. I am.
Good.
Fascinating. Let me put a couple of things your way, and then I'm going to ask you the hard question, and we can talk about it. You're describing exactly, so eloquently, so amazingly. It's so interesting to listen to you, because you're spot on. You're talking about reality versus perception. When you talk about the old lenses, I loved what you read when John Mack referred to holding the human psyche together. In other words, even if we want to believe certain things, it's almost like it's too much to believe. It's like we want to go there, but we don't know how to go there. And everybody's at a different pace, a different stage, and a different awareness level. So, then you've got the, amazing conversation of incorporating, the non-local reality, which, even Deepak Chopra has been talking about for a good 15 to 20 years, this non-local everything. And the quantum world, right? And the quantum world understood, completely agree. And then we're even new languages coming in the last decade, like language like the tipping point, or revolution, or quantum leap of evolution. See, these, it's all there, and it gives me goosebumps, right, just to say these words, because even our speech is changing. And, there was a time, folks, where we really did, as a worldview, as a human global community, we actually believed the earth was flat, and that if you went too far in the ocean, you fell off the edge, and it was supported by scholars, and there were paintings and photos of that cliff, that waterfall that dropped into demons and serpents, and this is where the lost ships and sunk ships had been. This was this was a belief system, a global belief system.
Well, Copernicus and Galileo also were roundly castigated. I mean, they were really pariahs in many
and Plato.
Aspects of society. And, Galileo was put under house arrest for this radical view that, of course, he was right about.
Yeah, it was considered radical, exactly. So here's my question with the, sort of wrapping that all up into a tight little, observation piece. Here's my question.
Yes.
In the past, when the worldview did change, when they decided we weren't the center of the universe, when they decided the sun was to use your words, the big cheese, when we found the earth was not flat, when we had a revolution in our own country, this is what I'd like to know. What was the tipping point in history in all of these cases? And how long did it take to approach and assimilate, if you will, the new information to where it became acceptable, palatable, and now the new reality? We have to ask this question.
But you should ask. There were indeed, for instance, Copernicus and Galileo were one tipping point. You can point to them. It's their understanding and new perspective that, became the kernel of the new worldview, and it took. I don't know historically how long it took. I know that it was hard fought and resisted. Hard resisted, I should say, for whatever. It wasn't overnight. It wasn't. Well, also in those days, what was communication? I mean, I don't know. Not like it is remotely like it is now, because whatever it was in those days when something radically new was proved. Well, wouldn't it just be around the world in a half a minute now? Then that's why the crop circles now. If they would ascertain, the powers that be would say, "Oh my, we've seen the evidence now. We've looked. We can't be making those. Something else is making them." In that half a minute, the whole world would have that information, and so you can't even hardly evaluate time frames. Something, Roxy, I thought I would interject. There's more, like you asked that question, where are the tipping points, because the other kind of tipping points that we can say some more about, that I want to say some more about, Darwin is the next one. And then the Big Bang, or whatever that might be, Hubble and Einstein, what they kind of gave rise to, always placing the universe bigger and more to it than the simplistic mythic kind of stories. That was a mythic story before Copernicus. It was a biblical story. It was a made up kind of how could things be, not based on science at all. And we more and more, science has actually been our doorway to learning the bigger pictures, always the bigger pictures of how everything is and how everything. I mean, we were the only galaxy until Hubble, and I believe the only galaxy or whatever. It was a very limited view of the universe before Hubble and Einstein, and oh my God, it's infinite now, so to speak. But I wanted to interject something here that I find, I pulled it a while ago, and I've hauled it out and put it into talks I've done, which I found rather astonishing, and I guess promising, you might say. There was an issue of Time magazine. Now, pretty straight, right? I mean, hopefully objective and straight, but not the paragon of consciousness, But here they did an issue with a cover story in March of 2008, and the cover story was 10 ideas that are changing the world, and it wasn't the ideas so much, but the editorial that they wrote about it that just knocked me out. And so this is from the magazine's editorial, just a few lines. Ideas change the world. The power of a new idea is the engine that transforms the way we live and think. Our country was founded on one. It was almost 50 years ago that the philosopher Thomas Kuhn coined the term paradigm shift, the moment when our worldview fundamentally changes because of a new idea, as when people understood the sun does not revolve around the earth, or that climate change is altering the way we would all have to live. Now, this is Time magazine, kind of like middle of the road or, whatever. I mean, talking consciousness, really. And then there's more. Yes, you want to hear a little more? This is
sure.
That was the editorial for the whole magazine, which was the cover story of 10.
I'm curious about what the 10 ideas were that changed the world.
Well, you'd have to go back and look them up in Time magazine.
I will.
2008. But here's from the introduction to the article about the 10 ideas, and it's more of what they were talking about in the editorial. The defining challenge of the 21st century will be to face the reality that humanity shares a common fate on a crowded planet. We have reached the beginning of the century with 6.6 billion people living in an interconnected global economy producing an astounding $60 trillion of output each year. Human beings fill every ecological niche on the planet, from the icy tundra to the tropical rainforest to the deserts. In some locations, societies have outstripped the carrying capacity of the land, resulting in chronic hunger, blah, 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 problems. We are, in short, in one another's faces as never before, crowded into an interconnected society of global trade, migration, ideas, and yes, risk of pandemic diseases, terrorism, refugee movements, conflict. We also face a momentous choice. Continue on our current course, and the world is likely to experience growing conflicts between haves and have-nots, intensifying environmental catastrophes and downturns in living standards caused by interlocking crises of energy, water, food, violent conflict. Yet for a small annual investment of world income, undertaken cooperatively across the world, our generation can harness new technologies for clean energy, reliable food supplies, disease control, the end of extreme poverty. That's why the idea that has the greatest potential to change the world is simply this. So, aside from the individual ideas, we need this. By overcoming cynicism, ending our misguided view of the world as an enduring struggle of us versus them, and instead seeking global solutions, we actually have the power to save the world for all, today and in the future. Whether we end up fighting with one another or whether we work together to confront common threads, our fate, our common wealth is in our hands. Well, you don't usually get that so much in the world conversation. I mean, I'm always, aware that we're talking about how do we handle this? How do we handle that? I mean, global warming, it's an issue. Oh, it's a massive issue. But the idea that's running us, we don't talk about that. So that's why I thought, 2008, Time magazine, they stated it so beautifully. Didn't form the basis for what went on to be the prevailing conversation. It amazes me that we don't have this conversation more.
Right. Well, it takes courage, and what an incredible conversation we're having with Suzanne Taylor. I really like it. It's the conversation is just expanding. Hope you guys are all enjoying it as well. You got any questions? Drop them in the chat room. We'll be glad to take a look at them. I do want to mention, thank you very much. Revolution Radio is listener supported, and we thank you for that. If you can continue to keep us on the air so we can continue the conversations that we have around the clock here at Revolution Radio. If you want to join the chat room, go ahead and go to freedomslips.com and join the chat room. It's right there when you log in and join, meet some new people, etc. Also, if you could, we dropped a couple of times a link in there for Spreaker.com. If you could join that and pass that along, post that to your Facebook walls, etc. That'll really help us out as well. We're trying to go to iHeart, and so again, I'm sorry. I know that I've repeated this several times on the show already, but I need you to do that. I need you to go to Spreaker, like speaker with an R.com. And also, if you could pass this on to all your friends, I believe we only need 500. So, I mean, it's not like it's costing you anything. You know what I mean? It's free. We need you to do this. Can you do this for me, please? And if you do it, if you write me at info@thetruthDenied.com, write me and tell me you did it. Tell me you joined, and I'll think of something nice to do for you. How's that? I can't give you any money because I don't have any, but I'll think of something real nice to do for you. Okay. Anyway,
hey, I could send one of my DVDs, Roxy.
Hey,
Make a contest. I'll send my
want
DVD.
To do that? A contest?
Hey, you make it up, and I got a lot of DVDs. So
okay,
what on earth?
Oh wow, okay. You know, this is live. Okay, wow. Oh, I don't know. Okay.
Well, you have to make it up. You know, we can't do it. I don't think we can negotiate it here.
It's something new. Thank you. Okay, listen. You want to get a free DVD? I mean, and I've got it. I've got the free DVD, and it's fabulous. So let's think of a way. I guess, you know, people post this on all your Facebook walls, pass it on to all your friends, and we're going to figure out a way. Whoever writes me and tells me the most people maybe signed up, that kind of thing. And listen, we're all about the truth here, so you can't lie to me. Don't lie to me and tell me that you got 50 people to sign up, and you really didn't. And then we'll get you a free documentary from Suzanne Taylor about crop circles.
We will.
Right, we will. I promise.
Right. And it's honesty speaks. Somebody who really goes to bat for you, who really puts out energy and really gets that circulated. We will believe them if they say that.
Okay.
And you will tell me, and I will send them a DVD.
Okay,
and they should go to cropcirclemovie.com and look at the trailer to see this wonderful
movie.
What
you're going to be getting, and it is. It's a fabulous movie, and it's a keeper. It's something you can watch again and again and again as well.
And show your friends.
And show your friends. So people
and have them go, I didn't know they were still having crop circles. I thought they were all fake.
As a matter of fact, Truth Denied Talk Radio is going to get more people to sign up. We are going to bust this thing. You guys, everyone, listeners, sweethearts, love of my lives, everyone out there, www.Spreaker, SPREAKER.com. My guest, Suzanne's going to give you a free movie, a free film, a free DVD. It's beautiful.
Yes, an hour of bonus material on top of it. With
hour of bonus. Award-winning documentary. Okay. And then I am also going to contribute something too, but I can't think of what I'm going to do at this very moment. Like I said, just to be clear, it's not money, but I'm going to do something. And you guys go sign up and give me the numbers throughout the show. If you guys can put in the chat room how many people have signed up, because when you go to Spreaker.com, it tells you how many people are following, how many people are there right now. So give me some numbers, some input. And everybody, I'm telling you, please do it for me, do it for us, do it for Revolution Radio, and do it. We're going to go to iHeart for crying out loud. We're going to expand the audience. You're going to meet lots more new people. Anyway, so there you go. We're doing something. Change. We were talking about the subject of change and evolution, evolving. We're talking about history here, and I just have to throw this out there too. Do you think that change happens, Suzanne, because what we create, it becomes out of necessity, out of a need, and then
usually, yeah.
Okay,
definitely. I mean, the way we are now, you know.
Well, maybe that's why, well, certainly. And one more question from the past hour. All right. Hey, look at this. Revolution Radio Studio A plays 452 followers, 52. Okay, we've got 52 followers in there. Sorry, Suzanne. And I want to see that number. I want to see it doubled by the time we get off. You guys help me out here. Let's get that number doubled. This is ridiculous. We have thousands and thousands of listeners. You guys go to www, do it for us, do it for Revolution, and do it because we're going to iHeart. And we can't go to iHeart until we get 500 followers on here. So it's www.Spreaker, SPREAKER.com. And I'm going to keep saying
I can't wait to hang up and go and do it.
I know, right? And see, Suzanne's going to do it too. All right. So, here's my other question, because we kind of mentioned this, we rolled around this in the first hour when we talk about tipping point and consciousness and incorporating, non-local reality and all the rest of the quantum world. And we mentioned, or you mentioned, the powers that be. And I have a question for us all. Are they really the powers that be? Are they really the powers that be, or did we make them the powers that be through our own belief system?
Well, I was talking about the ones who have authority. I mean, I guess you could say we created them, but we got officials, and if the officials tell us something, we listen. Sometimes stupid things they tell us, but if they told us that it has been ascertained that crop circles are not being made by human beings, I don't. They wouldn't say that unless they were damn sure.
Right.
And and I always picture contact in headlines across the world, just that idea and how powerfully and transformative, and how that once again just changes the fundamentals, and I don't know what's going on with. Definitely, this isn't junk. There's this whole UFO world. They're unidentified. What are they? There's a significant number that you can't pin down as being us. What's going on, But there are huge questions, of course, about all of that, including crop circles, like how with the incredible distances and how far away we are from anything, looks like they're, right up a stone's throw away, but when you get into the numbers of how far away everything is in the universe, even the closest things to us, and how impossible the idea is under anything we understand now to contact each other. But then again, what's coming down the pike in the scientific world, that wormholes and what have you, that will be or other dimensions. I think about other dimensions, not so much other planets or solar systems or whatever, and traveling between them. But I think about other dimensions as, well, you're kind of moving into that non-local reality kind of situation where what's going on there, are there really other worlds that exist in other dimensions? I very much like Graham Hancock and what he talks about cave paintings. So Graham Hancock points to the art in cave paintings, which were done by shamans, who have not your guys in a diner, so to speak, but the shamans of the cultures who were in touch with the other realms, and the figures in cave paintings. He talks about the similarity to what is contacted by people who are taking the LSD of our day, which is ayahuasca. And that on ayahuasca trips, you go wherever you go in this shamanic situation, and you engage with these same symbols, same figurative symbols that appear on these cave paintings. It's almost like there's another place. And the shamans 30,000 years ago went there, and you take a ayahuasca trip and you go there because there's a there. So that's a very interesting concept also. And that really has my attention as to what these influences might be on our world. It's still a big who knows, but and that distance thing is really very troubling, actually, when you think of every time I read those figures, I should have them in front of me, of how far it is to everything, how many light years, how long it would take to get across the solar system, let alone the galaxy, let alone the universe. I mean, it's incomprehensible. So where are these ships coming from? But it is a big mystery, and it is a big mystery. I actually have something to read you wonderful about mystery, but I thought I actually wanted to read you a little thing. I got out a few of my favorite things for the show. And, Edgar Mitchell, our sixth man to walk on the moon, the astronaut, who came back, and he had such a profound experience that his life was no longer the same, and he founded IONS, the Institute of Noetic Science, to study things that are beyond ordinary science, and one of our most prestigious organizations who are making such studies. But he has a way of phrasing things really very beautifully about the worldview we're in, what our issues, our problems are. And so I just thought I'd read you just a little paragraph of Edgar. He says, humankind's next phase of evolution will be more an evolution in thought, knowledge, spirituality, and consciousness than one involving our biology or physiology. It will likely be an evolution in consciousness triggered by research involving dramatic change in perceptions, values, beliefs, and attitudes, and a profound resultant shift in human behavior. As a consequence of this shift, the every man for himself paradigm, fueled by greed, will be supplanted by the all for one and one for all paradigm, fueled by a new spirit of altruism and unity. Predicated on credible science, peoples of the world must come to understand that we really are only as strong as our weakest link, that what we do to others, we do to ourselves, and that we are indeed our brother's keeper, quite literally. When this comes about, it will be the dawn of a new day, and solutions to every other major threat, problem, or challenge we face will quickly find their remedy, but certainly not before. To be sure, we must act quickly to embark on our journey deeper into the quantum realm, for time is not on our side. Edgar's got a wonderful, beautiful, beautiful grasp of all of this, and so he has, you know, some of my favorite writing. I post people like this a lot. People should get on my mailing list. You know, you want more tidbits like this. If you go to cropcirclemovie.com, where you see the trailer of my film, you can also get on my mailing list, and I highly recommend it. Everybody on my mailing list likes being there. You know, I send out, you know, unusual things that are all about opening our eyes and wising us up, and, you know, changing to a life-sustaining perspective that we so badly need. I'm about, actually, you know, I got so identified with the crop circles having made these movies that prior to my involvement with that, as I mentioned earlier in the show, I was producing many different kinds of events and projects and programs that had to do with changing consciousness or self-development or all the things that, you know, were waking us up individually. And I'm needing to get back to this broader purview. People think, oh, she's the crop circle girl. No, I'm the consciousness girl. So in the works is something called Doorway Cafe, Doorways to Another Reality, and it will have a broader platform than the circles, and everybody on my mailing list will hear about it. So get on cropcirclemovie.com to get on that mailing list. So you want to move along for where the next big paradigm shift was after Copernicus and Galileo?
Yes, it's your genius. I'd love to hear that. What's up next?
Okay. So the next one was Darwin, and
yes.
So Darwin took us out of the idea that creation happened in 4000 BC. That whole Christian narrative of the way the world was created. We've been evolving for the universe has been evolving for billions of years. And so, again, we are no longer these kind of anthropomorphic creatures who are the focus of the creation, the central entity, just like the earth was the central entity. Now people are the central entity. No, we just kind of, we came from otherness and we evolved into this, and we're still learning, and we're not fixed. You know, we can't tell our story as if everything is the way it is, and the dogma of the fall of man from an original perfection and a literal Garden of Eden and the origin of death and the sin of Adam, and that whole narrative of the fall and the redemption, nope, sorry, Darwin knocked that one out. And so that was the next way we had to revamp our whole larger perspective about what are we doing here? How do we get here? Who are we in relation to everything else? So every time we get a major shift like that, things change. The way we treat each other changes. You know, these meta concepts change the little small rules that we have or perspectives that we have about how to run ourselves and how to control ourselves. Here's a little quote from one of my most favorite authors. Actually, my favorite author is Brian Swimme. His book, The Universe is a Green Dragon. He's a physicist, and the book is subtitled A Cosmic Creation Story. If you can believe it, I have bought over 1,000 copies of this book. I belong to little organizations, wherever I, have a conference, I buy them for everybody. Well, not the world, but anyway, I've bought over 1,000. Who's bought over 1,000 books of anything? I love that book so much. So here's a little Brian Swimme, and then I'll tell you about one of my favorite passages in the book, or chapters in the book. He says, perhaps the greatest gift Darwin gave to humanity was the opportunity to see in all of life an ongoing, intelligent, creative drama. Rather than thinking of a form of life as having been put on Earth in a fixed form at a beginning of time, we now see each form of life arising out of the great adventure. And the chapter that I like so much in Universe of Green Dragon is a conversation between a student and a sage, and the question in this chapter that I like so much is what's this thing about a human being created? What's happening is that the universe just keeps giving rise to more of itself. It's a sort of evolution. It's Darwin at a universe level. It evolves, and and the universe. You think of the universe as alive. Oh, I know what I want to say. I was thinking, what didn't I say? The conversation that is being had between the sage and the student is so full of metaphors and not this, that, and the other, but this is like that, and picture this, and get the notion of this, and I can't even do it right. But his imagination to bring this science information, you might say, to life, so that you feel it viscerally, is just astonishing. So he has a chapter called Evil from Cosmic Risk, and it's where the universe created human. So here's the universe meaning Earth, because that's all we know. That's what we specifically know. So here we are. Animals have been created. There's no humans yet. And the universe is an intelligence. This is this Gaian emergent universe. We are the stardust. We've still got those atoms in us from the very beginning. So here we are at the edge of creation. No humans, got animals, and so now we're going to get human. But the universe took a risk in creating human. There was an advantage and a risk. So the advantage was that it could finally have something to appreciate itself. Animals could not appreciate the creation. They were instinctive creatures. But humans could be in awe and wonder and appreciation and noticing and being aware. But the risk, evil from cosmic risk, the risk in creating human was that it created a creature that could destroy itself, that had the power to turn on the creation, that had independent autonomy. And, that's just a kind of a interesting way to hold this. This is metaphorical. It's not objective science, but I love thinking of it that way, that when human came along, and then Brian Swimme, he's so charismatic, both as a person when he speaks and teaches, and also reading the book. What you get, not only this objective sort of picture of human being the appreciator and the potential creator, but you also get the tremendous responsibility that put in human hands. We no longer have this billions of year evolutionary minutely slow process of change, human has taken over. We are genetically doing things. We are modifying. We are in charge, at least here on our planet, of the way it evolves. Not everything. We can't control everything, but there's for many intents and purposes, we could say there's no more evolution the way evolution gave rise to human speciation. Whatever, it does not seem to be the story anymore because of how capable we are, because of how able we are to run the show. And with that responsibility, it is responsibility. It's like, oh, we are so privileged to have this capacity and be aware that, it's up to us to make this world work now. Animals didn't have to worry about that, They got the free ride. But for us, whoa, it is in our lap, and we can louse it up, we can destroy it. So I think, these are hugely helpful metaphors, I think, for how we think collectively and for inspiring us to think properly and, productively and healingly, all of the good stuff, I really recommend everybody read Brian Swimme, Universe is a Green Dragon. It's such an inspiration, and it's an easy little book. When I got that book, I hate to tell you how long ago, I think it was 1985. When I got that book, I started reading it, and then I went into my room, I closed the door. I've never done that with a book. And I, virtually didn't emerge for a day, a meal or two. I read the whole thing. It just so knocked me out. And then I've read it several times since, which I have not done with other books as well. Each time I read it, I have a different colored marking pen. And you should see my book. There's hardly a sentence in it that isn't highlighted in one color or another, because he writes that way. Everything he writes is just so inspirational and quotable and whatever. So here we are. Now, do we want to move along from Darwin to the next big part?
Please.
Got any queries in there or observations in there?
No, I think that it's quite obvious. I mean, yes, indeed, I have observations. I think it's where really almost where a lot of conversations are going today in today's world, which is we have the ability to, humans, we have the ability to destroy the world. And we have nuclear power, nuclear missiles, right? And so it has become, I think, at this point, from what I can see, it has become very us against them. We don't want war anymore, as we saw in our own country with, our own president. Our really exciting, fun guest, Suzanne Taylor. So, what comes after Darwin? Right.
Okay. So the next biggie. Now, we're not totally in accord on this as the definitive story when we talk about the Big Bang. We have arguments about that, and who knows? I mean, there's a steady state argument that the universe always been there, although then you wonder, well, wait a minute, how did it begin? And then you have a plasma kind of argument about some evolving situation that didn't start ever, and all of it is beyond our comprehension, but for sure, whatever that is, as the explanation, we could subsume that into this great paradigm shift when we went from our Milky Way galaxy, which was thought to comprise the entire steady-state universe, but thanks to Einstein and Hubble in the last century, we know that the Milky Way is just one of billions of other galaxies, and they've all got billions of stars. And, the picture got much, much bigger. So we're no longer Earth as this enormous entity at the center of the universe. We've now receded into being almost infinitely small speck of stardust, one tiny little solar system within the Milky Way galaxy, many billions of other galaxies. and it's not a simplistic steady state universe. It's expanding. You know, we're in a huge galactic picture now, or universe picture that we were not in before, which is that next change. And I thought I'd read you. So we went from a secular universe where before Copernicus and Galileo, we had this myth about heaven and earth and hell, and then we moved into the laws of physics controlling us, and Darwin and a biological revolution actually, and then we went into deep space cosmology with this Big Bang or whatever it is that planted us in beyond comprehension universe of infinite size conceivably, and so I'm going to read you just this little cogent thing on. This is somebody who writes cogently, and he has a Christian perspective, an enlightened Christian perspective. And I thought it was quite good, so I'm going to read you how this all ties together in his report about the transitions we've made and the worldview shifts we've made. So he says, gone forever is this puny three-tiered universe of heaven above, hell below, and humans in the middle, and wondering which way they will go. Gone forever is the power of the old myths peddled by the church and derived from a primitive worldview. Hope we're not in too much trouble with Christians out there. Copernicus and Galileo banished the mythical heavens of God and demons and gave us secular heavens governed by the laws of physics. We now know there are no laws operating out there, up there, that are not operating down here, and there is no God up there that is not down here. Gone forever are the ideas of a literal fall of man, original sin, and mankind being the originators of death. The biological revolution sweeps away the mythic nonsense of pre-Enlightenment humans. Called into question are such doctrines as a bodily resurrection and ascension to heaven, eschatology, and ideas of a second advent. This is a time to let the fresh breeze of reality sweep away the mythic cobwebs from the modern mind. So, as I say, I hope that doesn't offend any people who are very attached to the whole Christian story, but you have to, see it in a different light now. Even, the church has had to adjust since they were hugely resistant to Galileo and Copernicus, and Darwin, too, I think, gave them some trouble. But somehow the myths have retained. Again, it's that difficulty of shifting the worldview, even when facts contradict it. There's something comfortable. There's something, the gears are meshed in a certain way. That thesis is strong, and the antithesis has to get very strong to overcome it. And one of the things I think about our modern world, and that seems emblematic of this positionality we're in that needs to change. I think about the fact that alcohol is legal and psychedelics aren't. Alcohol keeps the status quo, it keeps us where we are, keeps us in that, dualistic world. And psychedelics, just shoot comets us out of there into much, perspectives on a much larger picture that has to include things like consciousness.
I know what you're saying. It's out of body. It takes we're no longer in this little... I know a few people that when they drink a little too much, they actually go out of body too. But it's a different. I'm actually tongue-in-cheeking it, but I understand what you're saying. But the indigenous tribes also use peyote and a number of other things too. For sweat lodges.
Forever.
Right.
Shamans have been substance all over the world forever. The Eleusinian
so
mysteries
you can lose
and
that boundary. That's
way back when.
True.
We have evidence that that a lot of our smarts came from psychedelics. and we actually.
Well, and unfortunately, in all reality, unfortunately, chirping is cool, but chirping too much isn't, and so there you go.
Oh, that's a whole other story,
right? But no matter where you go, I mean, there's something that we haven't really brought up in tonight's topic, which I think is, and if we have, forgive me, but here we go again within everything. In other words, there's no free lunch. There's no easy road. There's no such thing as the grass is greener and decide it's going to be better. It's going to be better, because there's balance. Always balance has to come into play, which is why I think any revolution or prior to a revolution, I think that is why it's called the tipping point, because it's about ready to break,
Well, I also think
as well.
I think what happened was, because you often wonder, well, we got our minds blown in the 60s. So what happened? How did those people become conservative again and back to capitalism and, money is greed and all? How did that happen? And I think it's because it was...
What's your take on that?
Well, I think it's because the psyche wasn't prepared. It wasn't ready. It was radical. It got shut out into something, but it had no substance. People hadn't, worked on themselves or whatever. I think it was beyond the capacity to really integrate. I think that's what happened. I mean,
and the movement was being led by a lot of tripping people, like Hendrix and Joplin and all the bands and Woodstock. It was being led by a bunch of people who, like you said, they tripped and they went out there, on psychedelics right?
And abused,
but you're right.
Yeah.
There was
right.
And I also think they were, like the Doors and Jim Morrison, all the rest. I mean, the list goes on and on. John Lennon. I think they were, oh my gosh, you want to talk about a time and a place and a decade where they came and they conquered the world, all these people, and then they left. I mean, they all died young, and anyone can say for whatever reason.
It was too much too fast. It wasn't, it didn't really have
but those
solid
individuals
roots
that led the way, I'm saying, those individuals,
Right.
I mean, I'm saying like they were special. You know what I mean? They came, I think they put that place in time for us to reflect on and say, we can do it. Because from the 60s till now, we've been through a lot.
Absolutely. That planted a new seed. Just like that, we started with the horse that runs away and, but then you get a fleet of horses or whatever. And,
right. And it's like, oh, great. And then you fall off the horse and break your leg. Oh, no. And then, somebody comes and rescues you.
The up and the down, the little wiggle through history.
Absolutely.
Right.
Which is
I have one more thing to read to you that I really like a lot. It's actually Brian Swim, back to my favorite author here. And, for all that we understand and learn and improve, and there's also a category that, as someone who's been so involved with the crop circles and has to defend them all the time or argue with people who are telling me one thing or another that negates them, and there's things we absolutely don't know, like let's just presume that we're not making them, which evidence really points to. So who's making them? And that's what people say. Well, where are they coming from? Don't tell us if that's the way it is. Where are they coming? I don't know. As someone in my movie says, who's making them? And she says, the only thing we can say is, not us. So I have a lovely little bit of writing from Brian Swim about the virtue of mystery, and I just like this so much. So I'm going to read it to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Albert Einstein once remarked that for the human race, there's no more powerful feeling than that of the mysterious. In fact, he was convinced this feeling for the mysterious was the cradle for all works of science, art, and religion. In light of Einstein's conviction, one might ask, what is the opposite of a feeling for the mysterious? The opposite would be the sense that one understands it all. The opposite would be the feeling that one is in possession of a system that explains all the phenomena in the universe. For such a person, the universe loses its appeal, for it becomes something we don't really need to pay attention to. The universe becomes an exemplification of a theory that one has already understood. No real surprises are possible, only the working out of a logical system through time. When a feeling for the mysterious is lost, one becomes vulnerable to the various fundamentalisms plaguing our planet, each with its passionate certainty that it has all the answers, while every other system is just superstition. In moments of stress and breakdown, there's a powerful drive in us to acquire answers and explanations. Certainly in our own time, when we are dismantling ecosystems around the planet and deconstructing the stable climate upon which our civilization is based, we feel a deep need to know what is real and what is good and how to proceed. This need can become so great, we are liable to latch on to one of those simplistic pseudo-explanations just to quell the feelings of fear and doom surfacing in us. Well, he goes on to talk about my movie, actually. He says, what on earth does not provide any such simplistic explanations? The restraint is one of its greatest achievements. By insisting that the crop circles are beyond any easy explanation, what on earth enables us to make peace with living in the ambiguity of not knowing? This ability to live with ambiguity is related to a sense for the mysterious, and together these two may be the most important factors for deep creativity to take place. At the very least, we need to realize that an embrace of ambiguity is a form of humility when confronted by the magnificent complexity of nature. So I love his writing about that. And, you know, because again, people say, oh, who cares about crop circles, or they're all made by people, or blah, 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 all this so-called knowledge that people have, which isn't knowledge, it's just opinion, or, you know, or silliness, or whatever it is. And I just like to say to people, look, keep your mind open. An open mind is something that new ideas can get into. This is one of the magnificent characteristics and virtues of being human. We can get new ideas. We can learn things. We can see beyond where we saw before. But if you're so arrogant to insist that, no, it can't be that, it can't possibly be, first of all, you're denying the evidence. You know, you're not looking at the evidence. You're looking at some kind of logic that says, no, that can't be. Well, the world is much more mysterious than we'll ever figure out. And, you know, keeping your mind open to that is definitely the position that is the most propitious to be in. You know, regardless of the details of the argument of why it's so hard to believe. And no, just keep your mind open. And, you know, that's not said based on nothing. I mean, there's peer-reviewed papers that have been written from very serious scientific studies where the materials from the crop circles have been taken into a laboratory and the plants have been analyzed and the soil inside the circles have been analyzed, and papers have been written that appear in peer-reviewed journals, which is where presumably we get the truth, except sometimes we ignore that. So, you know, you're not a loony bin by being curious about crop circles. You really are being much more intelligent about the result of having seen the evidence, and also putting yourself in so much better a position to be a human being, you know, to be smart, to learn things, to change the world, you know. At least one thing now, Roxy, we're not in that kind of Ozzie and Harriet naive time when the idea of changing the world was, very uninteresting to us. I mean, we know we're in trouble now. At least we know we're in trouble, you know. We know that this world is not really delivering. So, you know, there's some benefit to that. There's some virtue to that because at some level it forces us to open our minds. But the more, the better. You know, the more we are really willing to think new thoughts. I have a little thing on my blog I call Outside the Box Ideas, and I'm gonna, on my new website, my new Doorway Cafe, we'll dwell on that some. Or that's not quite the right word.
Is Is that site open?
Not yet. We're not happening yet. You have to get on my website.
Let me know when it is so that I can advertise everything.
No,
but deep thought you're talking about, you're reminding me that I think probably the most globally fearful moment, what I'm trying to say is where all of humanity fainted, if you will, I think was with Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Definitely. A huge turning point.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think this is where we truly became aware of the fact that we could seriously annihilate ourselves. And here's the problem with that. I just said it, that we could seriously annihilate ourselves.
Yeah, that's serious now. That's not just,
but it's not
kind of woo-woo talk.
But it's not we. It's them. Do you understand what I'm saying? That they can seriously annihilate us. So the we part of it is, I guess, what I'm trying to say, Suzanne.
Well,
is that
I don't know about that, Roxy.
But I didn't build those things. I don't know anything about atomic warfare. I don't know how to build those. I don't know. In other words, I'm just saying, listen, you hold on a second, Suzanne, because I'm making a point of your point.
Yes.
When you said that we become more aware.
I think I'm going to disagree with you, but that's okay.
We're not. Well, go for it. The Ozzy and Harriet, you mentioned that, and that at least we're aware and awake and so forth. Now, even though we weren't in there building those nuclear missiles, nuclear bombs, atomic bombs, all the rest of it, what you're absolutely spot on about. I do believe back then when Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed, I don't think you could blame the global network of humanity for that action that was taken without our approval. But today, in today's world, I think we're starting to use the language like noncompliance, what we will not stand for anymore, what we will not approve. Because we do have a rogue government and a rogue industrial military complex who does whatever the you-know-what they want.
Well, Roxy, there's another way to hold it, though.
Bring it on.
That's perspectives. But the other way to hold it, the person who speaks very eloquently, particularly about what you're saying and what I'm now going to say, is Charles Eisenstein. I don't know what Sacred Economics is his book.
Oh, neat.
I hear he has a new book now. I'm sorry, I don't know the title. Somebody just told me he has a new book. But anyway, I was circulating a piece of his. This is what you get when you're on my mailing list. I was circulating a piece of his that I thought was very cogent, where he said there's no them, it's all us. The government is us. And if you posit it as them, you don't take responsibility for it. Look, and this is not all Charles, this is kind of, my synthesis after that. And I want to say, look, we're all in the stock market. You may not be, but almost everybody is. Everybody needs the world to do these terrible things it's doing. It needs your corporations to do well. And we're all part, because the system itself is so screwed, but we're all part of it. We are pegged in that very system. And
but are we pawns in it? Are we pawns in that system? Can we break away?
No, I don't think so.
Break away civilizations. I mean, there's actually talk of people talking about breaking away from a system that we're enmeshed with. I mean, seriously. How do you break?
Well, any individual, of course, can go off the grid or whatever they do, but it's much more propitious, I think, to think that it is in our lap and that we're all complicit at some level. Now, obviously, there are people with good hearts and bad hearts, but we are inextricably part of a system that we, as an individual, don't control and yet play our part in. All those people in Washington, we elected them, and then you've got this system that is forcing them to raise money and be beholden to their donors and whatever, but it's still all us. Wait, Charles Eisenstein writes beautifully about that, better than I'm describing it to you, but I like that way to think.
I like that. I agree. I like that. I've used this before. There's no them. There's only us, and the accountability falls on us. Oh, believe me, I get it. Which is why.
Yeah, that doesn't mean there aren't bad people and good people.
No, but that's why is really perception at this point, right? You just want perception you want, which is why I asked, is there really a powers that be? Because if there is, why isn't it us?
And who control the media. And in that situation, in terms of the powers that be telling us that they have examined the evidence and crop circles are real,
right.
if we don't get it from the powers that be, it won't be a universal message.
These are the same people that, you know what I mean, that are running the show. I think that at the end of the day, this worldview shift, this whole tipping point, this expansion, evolution, whatever we want to call it, quantum leap, if you will, I think that it is going to be us that create it. There's no one else to create it.
Yeah, well, if we think of it that way, we're much more empowered, to try to do
and
something
I do like a whole lot that the crop circles and the messages and these amazing, in the last decade or two, very complex geometries all over the world of these crop circles. I love this. This is like you said, it's a phenomenon, and it's one that really makes you think, brings out your critical mind, brings out that critical brain, like, wow, where is this from? And if indeed it is from them, because then now there would be a them out there.
Yeah. That's a different kind of them. Yeah.
It's never got a them. Yeah, exactly. But it is, if it's from them, and these are just huge messages of love, and you can do it in whatever it is, and so forth. Well, you nailed it. You nailed it already when you talked about all these different changes of worldviews all the way up to now, once we realized that we were not the only ones. Because
radical.
Many centuries, it's just Earth, it's just humans, etc. So now that we know we're not, we know that the odds are so against us. We can't just be it, and that we are, as you said in the show, a speck. Then aren't we so lucky? In my opinion, I'm full of gratitude that we're important enough to them that they come and lay down these beautiful pieces of art on our planet.
Yeah, really, really. You just so yearn to really connect, to really have the absolute, evaluation that says yes, and that everybody's in that, and then we all have one conversation on Earth. What's going on? What do we do about it? It's obviously peaceful. It's not, it doesn't have any violence in it. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's fascinating. And if we're all in one conversation, and you can just picture it too. Okay, now we know this other intelligence. We are one humanity in relation to that. We have nothing to relate to now. Now we just relate to each other. And look what we do to each other. But if we had something that wasn't us, it would pull us all into one entity. We would be one humanity. It would be so major. And then I think, what a shame that this thing has been so marginalized and criticized and not taken seriously. And what a shame for everybody. I mean, again, the whole idea of mystery and the imagination that it would open up for us, even short of knowing that it's coming from elsewhere, just wondering about it opens our minds. And then
exactly. That's the point, Suzanne.
Really? I mean, we've so deprived ourselves by this stupid small-mindedness of protecting, no, we don't have the right evidence, and it can't be.
Or what about who cares?
Who cares? We have who cares also.
Like, what does that have to do with my bank
account?
Right. It's like we need to further the consciousness shift sweeping through humanity. This is important stuff. She's made 2 documentaries, Crop Circles, Quest for Truth, and, of course, What Unearthed Inside the Crop Circle Mystery, which I have. Suzanne sent it to me last year, and I absolutely love it. The photography in it is amazing. If you want to pick it up, there are a couple of websites that you can go to. One of them is cropcirclemovie.com. You might want to check that out. I put all the links into the chat room, and I will continue to do that throughout the evening. I just really look forward to the topic that Suzanne, of course, chose for this evening. And, of course, the topic is New World View, Here We Come. That's what I love about Suzanne. She's enthusiastic. Okay? In other words, we have so much change that needs to happen in the world. We're going to discuss what that change is. We're going to discuss it even on an individual level for each and every person so that you can see through your own eyes what we're dealing with here. At the same time, it's a lot of work. It seems like a lot of work. We're plowing through the fields with this work, correct? But Suzanne has such a spirited uplifting way of explaining how to do the hard work. So I really look forward to the interview. Suzanne, welcome to the show, and thanks so much for being here.
Okay, let's fix it all, Roxy.
Okay.
Are we ready?
Yes, we are.
Come on, I got all this enthusiasm. So I don't know. I don't know why the world is so crazy.
You don't know
why
they're
not listening to us. I mean, obviously.
Right. Well,
Right.
Right. Let me offer something to this real quick before we get on our way. For you and the audience, I had a very in-depth conversation with another show host last evening about this very thing. And it seems to be the topic for a lot of us, Suzanne, something that just pops right out, like what's going on. And it's interesting because this seems to be a solution for some of us. There are those people who, and listeners, you've heard this before on my show as well. There are those people that you try to tell, explain something to, whether it be a UFO phenomenon or whatever, or you both see a streak through the sky together. One person says, I don't know what it was. Like,
Revolution Radio proudly presents live from Phoenix, Arizona, the Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here for topics you won't hear about on mainstream news, such as chemtrails, GMOs, nutrition, and conspiracy facts regarding your personal sovereignty. Humanity is 7 billion strong. We are the majority. And now, live from the Valley of the Sun, your host, Roxy Lopez.
Hey, and we're live, and I just have to say, yes, it's Roxy Lopez. Yes, it's still me, and it is November 12th. I was just listening to the show before me, Sean Morton. He's so informative, isn't he? I just had to sit and listen and throw some pot shots at him in the Skype window and everything, but it's kind of fun. Hey, I've got to catch you guys up on a couple of things. First of all, you need to go to www.spreaker.com. That's spelled like speaker with a R, Spreaker. Spreaker.com. This is how we're going to manage. Just hit like, and we're going for the old iHeart, here at Revolution Radio. So this is our affiliation and casting from iHeart Radio. And we need 500 followers. That should not be hard to do. And again, we'll throw this into the chat room a couple of times during the show. If you could just click it and basically like it, join it, and that's the path to iHeart for Revolution Radio. I know a lot of you listeners would be totally thrilled if we get the gig. And we're almost there. So if you could do that for me, Spreaker.com. And the link is there in the chat room. Thomas will put it in there. Good evening, everyone. It's a windy day here in Arizona. Don't know what's going on. Strange weather. It's so much so that people around me even noticed. Some calls I had to make locally here today actually mentioned it because it's bizarre. The weather got very warm again. It went up like 15 degrees, and we've got these heavy-duty winds, and we don't know what's causing them. We have no idea. Thomas, you just added 919.
I just hung up on him. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. And sorry if that was a caller. We can take callers on the second hour, but for the first hour, I have a wonderful guest. We're going to go down a path here this evening that I think is so needed and everything. But let me give you a couple of news stories very quickly here, and then we can move on. It took three 20-something programmers a couple of nights to come up with an Obamacare website and alternative. Do not be confused by this. I'll give you the link to this story. I know that we've been following this for quite some time because it's such a debacle, and it goes to show you, oh my gosh, what is going on in America kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? Who knows? But this is really interesting. It took them, again, 20-something programmers, a couple of nights to come up, to build from scratch an Obamacare website alternative. But what's interesting about this, by the way, it's called thehealthsherpa.com. Thehealthsherpa.com. Don't know what it means. And you can go there and take a look at it. And the website that addressed the biggest problems from the glitch-ridden healthcare.gov, that nobody can seem to sign up for a plan. And it's quite interesting because you cannot use this website that these guys built in 2 nights. You can't use it to actually sign up for Obamacare. But what you can do, what they did, is they put this together so that you can shop plans. And actually, apparently, a few people have actually found their plans, signed up for their plans, which, by the way, when you sign up for a plan, that makes you in compliance with the health care laws in the country that began supposedly on October 1st, 2013. Find it very interesting. The 3 programmers based their site not even interested in what it is. When the other person says, man, that was a craft, that was so cool, oh my God. And you find that you can't go any further in that conversation. What is the hang up there? What is it that what you're experiencing, on the one hand, the other person is not even there? What is with the division of the 2 worlds? There seems to be a clear-cut division of those who completely get it and you can talk about just about anything, and others who you can't talk about anything with. What is that? Why is that occurring?
Well, you have, I think, another kind of demarcation that kind of fits right along with that one, which is the kind of denial of not just lack of interest and lack of attention and lack of awareness, but an actual denial of reality. And I'm on this today because I've been very plugged in to a piece that actually ran in the New Republic. Now, isn't that a legitimate publication that you would expect to have sort of objective reports in? I mean, isn't that one of our kind of, it's not it's something that's controlled presumably by some fringe element, is there? Because you would think so from this piece that came out yesterday. I almost can't do anything else. I'm so mesmerized by the conversation. It's an incredible attack on Rupert Sheldrake, and it's an attack by Jerry Coyne, arch skeptic. And there are hundreds of comments now, among them several of mine, calling him a woo-meister. And so you read the comments and people are saying, well, these things are just made up. There's no proof. Excuse me. You have all kinds of scientific experiments that are done on issues of psi, which is the kind of larger category that they are ridiculing. You have serious scientists. I mean, Russell Targ, for instance, is the person who was in charge of the lab at Stanford Research Institute
which took them a couple of nights to create, off code buried by high-priced contractors on the original Obamacare website. What does that say to you right there? They simply found an easier and a cheaper way to make the experience doable for the average consumer. Quote, that's a great thing about having such a small team, said one of the leaders of the tech teams. You sit around a table and you say, okay, how does this work? There's no coordination meetings. There's no planning sessions. It's like, well, let's read the document and let's implement this. The programmers even added a feature, get this, to help users calculate whether they're eligible for tax subsidies under the new health care law. The subsidy calculation is fairly complicated, but it wasn't too bad on the other side. If you can get to it, because as we all know, the government healthcare site is not really working. It's important to note that you can't actually enroll in Obamacare through the healthsherpa.com, and it doesn't perform every function that healthcare.gov was designed to perform but doesn't, I have to just laugh. Is this hilarious to anybody? Is this just a debacle? Okay, still, the site does offer contact information for health insurance providers, which means someone could sign up without ever having to use the healthcare.gov website. So basically, it's a workaround. You can go, you never even have to log into the healthcare.gov website. I'm going to look into this story a little bit more. I want to find out what their security codes on it. As you know, there were over 17 security breaches on the healthcare.gov website. Purposeful? Yeah, I think so. I don't think that was an oversight. And how long and how many millions of dollars did it take? Took these guys 2 nights to build a site that you can actually go to, look at all the health providers that are within compliance of the new healthcare laws, sign up, and you're done. For those of you who want to play the game. For me, I don't want to play the game, so we'll just have to see what happens there. Anyway, welcome to the show. We have a great guest this evening. A lot of you have written in already and are excited to hear what Suzanne Taylor has to say. You know, she's a producer, writer, and networker. She produces projects and events so that self-aware thinking individuals have opportunities to engage